Hey, I think we're live. Push 1 in the chat if you can hear me. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for that confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is an addendum for the protesters and the hecklers. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also, there'll be a link in the chat if you want to join the panel. Make sure you update your Zoom client before joining, or else you won't be able to join. The screenshot says it all, okay? Screenshot says it all. And so I want to make sure that we're correcting the record for what we're about to get into, okay? Screenshot is from a YouTuber named Ray Alexander. He's been on our channel before, okay? And he says, at Rael's a contributor to the Black Brain Trust. The Black Brain Trust has been a great disappointment. Started by a high school dropout and a person with 1 semester of college. This other person has a BS in engineering plus an MS in cybersecurity. Now I want to clear the record, right? The Black Brain Trust started as a collective of Black males who wanted to have more discussions about things involving tech and fourth industrialization and economics and so on and so forth, because we were already having these discussions on another channel called Black Gnostic Speaks, okay? We wanted to further the conversation, so we decided to create a channel. The purpose of the channel is not to be Moyers and company, you know, for the, you know, for Black YouTube. It was meant for a collective of men, Black men in particular, to have more in-depth conversation around things that were trending in tech and economics and geopolitics, okay? That was the focus of it. So to say that the Black Brain Trust has become a big disappointment, I'm not sure many of the subscribers agree with this. So I wanted to lay the groundwork for that. The other piece I want to address is it was started by a high school dropout. First of all, let's get something straight here. I dropped out of school, and I've told this story before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. I dropped out of school because the school I was attending at the time in the 90s did not have an accreditation, okay? It wasn't the only school that did not have accreditation within Boston Public Schools. It was one of many. And so if you graduate from a high school that did not have accreditation, there's a 50-50 chance you may not have your grades and your coursework accepted into some of the traditional colleges, okay? And so I dropped out to get my GED because the other alternative was to go to the Air Force, okay? This was in the late 90s. This was like 98, 99. I decided not to go to the Air Force because I sat down with a couple of people who were already in the IT industry in regards to Oracle and Lucent Technologies, 2 Black men, prominent in their positions. One was a database architect and another one was a network engineer. And they both said the same thing to me. You want to get into tech, you want to get into IT, okay? And so I pursued that path based on the mentorship and the conversations that I was having with these 2 gentlemen, these 2 Black men. And so I focused on that path in order to get to another position. But what was happening in the tech industry, we went through the dot-com boom, and there was a lot of no hiring of people at the time. And so I went through various vocational schools and didn't like them, went to a couple more, and then I found one that I did like, okay? Computer electronics and engineering was the focus. I went through the vocational school. I did exactly, I was exceptional in that school, and I decided through my counselor that you should pursue an undergrad in information technology, okay? And so I first went to BU, Boston University, but they would not take those credits from that school because it was not one-for-one with their program, and so they would not take it. This is the same thing that happened at community college too, went to community college too. And so they weren't always accepting of, the traditional schools were not always accepting of the other local schools coming out of it. Now they can accept you in, but they will not accept those credits, okay? The one school that did accept it was ITT Tech. ITT Tech accepted all my credits. I graduated a semester earlier than I was supposed to. And then, you know, I got into cybersecurity later, okay? I had an undergrad in information security. The point of this sort of story is to give some context to what was said in the thumbnail. There are a lot of people like this person in the thumbnail who want to smut or put smut on our name so that we can't have any credibility in the space, but our track record tells you where our credibility is, okay? What's happening in this space is there are a lot of Black men who are trying to sabotage the progress of this channel and other Black men who consume this content too, okay? What they want to do is make it seem as if we're incompetent, okay? Complex Design has already told its story. In fact, before there was a Black Brain Trust, there was a Business, Wealth, and Power. Okay, that's where Complex and Anti-Gravity came from. And so talking about tech and talking about economics and stuff like that, we had already been doing that type of stuff before there was a channel. So that's why we decided to come up with a channel. And so what we wanted to do was have conversations that centered around the existence of Black men, not around the industry itself. We don't care about who you work for and you know what kind of car you drive and how many houses you own. We don't care about that type of stuff. That's not us, because our focus is not about the materialistic capitalist gains that you have. We care more about the fundamentals of what's happening at the time that it is happening and how does it impact Black men in particular. And what's happening in this space is that there are people who don't want you to have this information and they don't want us talking. And so what they're doing is they're putting smut on our name, okay? I do quite well for myself, so I'm not worried about, the critique, but I don't like the smearing of the Black Brain Trust's contributors, such as Complex Design and myself, and even Rael for that matter, to say that we're somehow a disappointment and that we have not actually added any value and that we're somehow not credible enough. Okay, the idea of this channel is not to build institutions and organizations. The idea is to have more in-depth conversation that centers around Black male thought and Black male progress. And I think we've proven that in the content that we have produced. So what exactly else do you want from us? We're not, the purpose of these tech talks that we were holding before is not for us to do the certification for you. It's not for us to teach you the technology, but is to give you a compass as to what's trending and how it's going to impact you and what kind of pathways can you take that can lead you to the next, step. Not that difficult to understand. A lot of people in here are too afraid to raise their hand because somebody like this person in the thumbnail will come out and slander you. Okay, and they'll shame you for actually raising your hand. So I do these tech talks, or I did these tech talks because someone looked out for me. And it's important that we all pass on that same baton. We should be looking out for other Black men. We should be passing off information that's credible and viable for your advancement. We should be having those conversations. The only people who don't feel that we should have these conversations are the Black men like the ones in the thumbnail. Okay? And whenever you ever hear these type of people say the things like they said in the thumbnail, you go to their channel, they have nothing. They have nothing to offer that's comparable to what we're doing. And we never claim to be experts at anything. We're just having a conversation. But the threat, our voice is so threatening and our information is so credible that they have to try to smear, you know, our name and our likeness, our brand. We even had the same people try to trademark our name. But if the Black Brain Trust was so incredulous, then why would you try to trademark our name? Why would you try to slander us? The links they dropped, okay? The links they dropped. Anybody can come up and challenge me or Complex or MOT on what we're saying in regards to the body politic or the tech or the financial information. Dollar Will has been our subject matter expert for that matter when it came to our charts. I don't know how to do charts, okay? I rely on Dollar Will to really pass that information off. And he did a great job at that, okay? Hard to refute anything that he's saying, hard to challenge him on what he's saying when he's doing all of it in real time. I don't see these, these protesters and these hecklers doing the same thing on their channels. I don't see them doing that. You got a channel, but you don't put any content on there. And if you do put content on there, it's not reflective of what we're doing. Right? So what's the problem? The problem is they don't like us for being us. That's why I wanted to put the screenshot up there so y'all don't think that I'm just making this up. Oh, y'all are just making up rumors and stuff. No, it's not. That screenshot tells you exactly what's going on. In fact, more Black men are getting their GEDs today than what they were, 20 or 30 years ago. Because the public education system has been so dismal. And in fact, in Massachusetts, now they pay for your GED and they pay for your community college now. Okay? It's all free. You want GED tutoring? Free. You need a bus pass to get to your GED tutor? Free. Lyft and Uber to get to school? Free. That's called progressivism. Okay? A lot of these guys in this space who want to talk slick about the Black Brain Trust and what we do and what MOT does, it's only because these guys don't have anything credible to add to the conversation. We don't follow them. They follow us because they have to. Because they know the information is credible over here. They know that we don't delete content based on us being inaccurate. If we are wrong, we'll do an addendum like we're doing right now. We have many addendums that we've put out. We will go back over the content and say, we were probably wrong about this, but very rarely were we wrong. If not, we were in the right ballpark, may have not gotten the jargon correct, but we were very, very close. And I think what's happening now is people are lashing out, or certain people like the ones in the thumbnail are lashing out because they don't really have anything to add. They don't really have any value to add to the conversation. One guy came in on O'Shea's coattail. Now O'Shea's not in the space. Same guy lingering around. You're not manosphere. Haven't you figured it out? You're not manosphere. You don't contribute to the space. You don't value the space. You lack principle. You're not manosphere. You're not a part of this collective of Black men. You're just not. You're Black in name and face only. But outside of that, you really don't have any value in this space. Throwing up super chats and talking greasy and stuff like that. Listen, that's easy. That's easy. But have a real-time conversation with myself or MOT or even BGS for this matter, right? Let's take BGS into consideration. BGS and I have vast disagreements. But even though we disagree, I don't set out to attack him personally, okay? I don't talk about his family or his daughters or his situation. I don't do that because that's beneath me. I don't have to go into all that, okay? We could talk about the subject at hand and we can agree to disagree on it and we can go on separate ways. But I got a lot of love for BGS because he's one of the few people in the space that actually reads books, okay? Traditional books. He really reads books. He even has a channel called BGS for Books, okay? So I have a lot of respect for, his craft in some ways because he does actually read, even more so than a lot of his subscribers do, okay? But it's unfortunate that we have people who want to slander and make it seem like, oh man, the Black Brain Trust, man, they ain't do this and they ain't do that. Or, Mike V, he's a high school dropout. You're right about that, but there needs to be context behind that statement. You can't just make an empty statement like that and get away with it. Okay. Having a GED is not a bad thing, okay? Many Americans have it. And it's recognized by every institution in this country. What are you talking about? I was even a GED tutor at one point after I got my GED, okay? I volunteered. I did a lot of volunteer work in my time, before undergrad and stuff like that. I did a lot of volunteer work. Volunteered, at many of these nonprofit organizations that help people get into tech and, get their GEDs and digital literacy, things like that. I've traveled to Africa, have worked with a lot of digital literacy initiatives over there, or a few digital literacy initiatives over there, Africa Tech Summit. I've been to all these places. I know a lot of people around the world, man. I don't brag about these things because it's not necessary to do so. But what's happening in the manosphere is that people want you to be Neil deGrasse Tyson in a space full of Bravo Alpha Novembers. Makes no sense, man. If you weren't taking action before, what difference does it make if I was Neil deGrasse Tyson or I was Mike V? It doesn't matter. You weren't taking action because that's just who you are as a person. You're a Bravo. That's what you do. I expect you to do that. But stop pretending that, we have to create opportunities for these guys. No, the opportunities are there. You just need to take action. What's the problem? So that being said, let me drop the link in the chat and see if the protesters and the hecklers come up, because I find it interesting that people would say these type of things behind our backs, but when the link is dropped, you never see these folks. Link is in the chat. Give the hecklers and the protesters 5 or 10 minutes to come up, man. If not, man, we out of here. See. Oh, yeah, some people's in the back. Yeah, let them in. MOT, what's going on, bro?
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Sure.
I mean, man, it's kind of like with this issue. I had the same issue when I on the interview I just had on the breakdown. All this noise talking in the chat, all these super chats, but when the links they drop, they don't come up. All these people with brand new channels, brand new complaints, and it's like there's a lot wrong. Dude, like blackmail coward is like a very big issue, man. Like it really gets on my nerves how cowardice these people are, man. It really does. I mean, not just this situation, but just like all situations where people don't know how to effectively problem solve on issues, and they end up doing other things rather than just handling the issue outright. I just don't understand it.
No, it's just that they would rather us go away so that the space doesn't have anything. Because okay, so what's the alternative? What's the alternative to progress? Explain that. Oh, well, you guys aren't building institutions. I didn't know you're supposed to build an institution from StreamYards or Zoom, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the problem is that build something so we can destroy it. Like they don't want it built for it being built sake. They want it built so that way they could come through and just pretty much destroy whatever you just built. Like it's kind of like, part of the conversation, which was a valid question. Why don't y'all leave the space? Like, why do we have to leave the space? We're here on the mission.
Yeah.
People who are not on the mission are never asked how come they don't leave the space and formulate their own space rather than destroying something there that is for questionably productive black men.
And if you think that what we're saying is inaccurate, all you have to do is hit the link and actually come up or do a response video. That's all you have to do. Because I'm not seeing any information that we're spreading that is misinformation in this space. I'm not seeing that. And so if you want to compare me and Complex to the other guy who has a BS and an MS and BS, I'm perfectly fine with that if you can actually point out where is the comparable content to it. Now you have another channel that's called Struggle Something, but it's not Manosphere. So it's not an apples to apples conversation, right? It's not an apples to apples comparison. What you're doing is you're taking an outside subject and putting it into the space itself to make it seem like, oh, well, look at this. No, that's not the same. Compare our channel to, let's say, Three-Letter Guy over there. I'm not saying that we're better. I'm not saying he's worse. I'm saying the content speaks for itself. Oh, well, guys are just reading articles for 4 hours. Listen, there's another channel in YouTube called the channel name, not the channel name, but the content creator is Jason Calacunis. He's an angel investor. He does the same exact thing that the Black Brain Trust does, but only difference here is he has a lot more graphics and production and so on and so forth. And he's a white guy. Okay, he's an angel investor in tech. He talks about tech all the time. And he's not even a full tech guy. He's just an angel investor that knows tech. Okay. He was pretty vocal. I started following him around the BLM protest when he spoke out around the George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, when he started calling out other white tech venture capitalists in the industry for not bringing on more black men. Okay, not having a diverse portfolio of venture capitalists in their ranks. Okay, I knew about him before, but I followed him when he started calling out the lack of diversity of black men in venture capitalism and tech. And I think that let me bring in New Jersey Prophet. I think that what's happening here is black men is never enough for them. And so comparing me to somebody who has a BS and BS and an MS and BS, I'm fine with that if the content is one for one the same. I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about how many likes and views and stuff that they got or how many subscribers I don't care about that, because we never talk about subscribers and we never talk about views because it's not relevant to, the foundation of the content itself. What is the content really reflective of? Does it go into depth about what's going on? You don't hear us talking about Chat GPT a whole lot, because I think that's pretty, I think it speaks for itself that, generative AI is a emerging tech that, is still being molded right now. It's really early in the game. You're only talking about 6 months since Chat GPT has gone live. And so what are you going to really discuss? I mean, it's really early. And so I wanted to bring on New Jersey Prophet. What's going on, bro?
Hey, I just wanted to say that your content, MOT's content, has actually changed my life and the trajectory of where I'm going as a professional, a young professional. Before I started listening to y'all, I wasn't into technology. I had no foresight in getting into technology. But since listening to your channel and then also MOT, I've got 3 certifications underneath my belt. I'm working on my 4th one now. I'm doing like systems administrating, security administrating, a little bit of network administration. Like I'm doing all this stuff now. And this is when like COVID first started. So from that time, if these dudes weren't like worrying about this other stuff and just took the advice, actually did the footwork and moved forward with their lives, they probably be where I'm at, if not further, but you can tell people just here for the nonsense.
Yeah.
That's why I really just wanted to jump up and say, like, because this might not be the biggest, like most popular channel, but the stuff that you guys are putting out is legitimate and it gets the job done. And like, if you want progress and you're willing to do the legwork, it's all right here. It's all right here. Peace. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Have a good one, man. And there you have testimony from one of the subscribers. He's just one of many. If I can show you some of these emails and DMs that I get, man, I'd be here all day, man. I don't got all day to be on here, man. I only came up here because I saw that comment. I said, somebody's got to address this. And so I think, based on the testimony from New Jersey Prophet, based on the subscriber steadiness, and based on the content that's being put out, why don't we bring these protesters and hecklers on, man? Like you were over there in Sister George, but why would you be in Sister George's if you care about tech and progress like that? Because, the breakdown as a channel does not focus on the advancement of Black men at all. So why would you be over there? You see, this is the gaslighting that goes on in the space with a lot of Black men. Go ahead, MLT.
I personally think that the progress that we made in this space as men is something that people have never seen in their own families. Like when you're a productive and a successful individual, you have all this cultural guilt on you to kind of artificially hold yourself behind and be around a certain group and kind of people. I mean, I wish I could show you some of these emails that I get from these men and these women about, thank you for saying that. I was waiting on somebody to say that, but yeah, man, like, man, this is what I done and this is how I turned things around. Man, I did not know how much of this stuff was in my own hands. Like a lot of these people are socializing the failure. It's something that's pretty normal. But once these people get their mind off of what people think about them and focused on what they're actually doing, dude, they have a better outcome, a better outlook on life, a better everything. But there's a lot of these people who don't want to see productive men actually do anything. And it's not the women. I kept saying that it's not the women. It's something wrong with these dudes. It's the actual dudes who don't want to see these things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's coming from credential guys too. That's the thing, right? He has a BS and BS and he has a MS and BS. Oh, okay. That's cool and all, but how did that advance the conversation and how did that advance everyone else within the conversation? How did that work?
And it's not the so-called street dudes. Like you say, it's not them. Like a lot of them dudes message me behind the scenes too.
Yeah.
Man, dude, this is what I got going on, man. Bro, you were so right. Man, I did this stuff right here. I started making my own money, bro. I ain't never going back to that type of BS. There's so many of these. You know what I do? Don't say nothing. Keep it moving. Why? Not why I'm here. Once you start putting this information into action, there's no reason to talk about anything. Once you start seeing these results, there's really no reason for anything.
Yeah.
But that's where we are. You know, you got a lot of people who just don't want to see this stuff happen for other men. And it's mostly productive guys.
Yeah. Yeah. A BS and BS and the MS and BS, but always following us around, critiquing what we're doing. I don't get it, man. Because if what you're doing is so credible, then why are you over here? And plus, you're not even Black Manosphere. You're not a contributor. You don't add any, you don't create any content that centers around Black Manosphere. You're not a stakeholder in this space. It doesn't make any sense. You don't see, you don't see, you don't see, what do you call it? Smokers hanging outside of the American Cancer Association, you know, protesting them about how little progress they've made on cancer research and remissions. You don't hear them saying that. It's only in the Black Manosphere that you see these guys coming here with all their credentials and coming here and try to tear down everybody else that's doing something that they themselves aren't doing. Oh, the Black Brain Trust, they're a bunch of bums. They just sit around reading articles. Oh, I'm sorry. You mean we focus on literacy too much? Oh, I'm sorry about that. You know. But what else would you like us to do? Because these people only seem to be in areas where there's no productivity, but then over here where there's actual productivity, they're never to be found. Even if they disagree. Even Preem, right? When we first started doing the content, Preem was one of the biggest contrarians on the panel. Okay, we let him up all the time, so it's not like, oh, you know, we don't allow people up, we kick people off or we block people. We don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that. And so people attacking, you know, this, you know, the channel is, they don't have anything to say about those other channels that put out, you know, unproductive content, but got a whole lot to say about us, but what we're doing over here. But we don't follow those guys. That's the other thing, that we don't follow them. They follow us. Okay. They follow us. We don't know them. They know us. I don't care about your credentials. I don't care about what your career ladder looks like. I don't care about that. If your credentials are so strong, then why isn't anybody coming to you? And why aren't you putting out that content so that it reflects that people are coming to you and you're having those conversations? It doesn't make any sense. And so that's what's going on, man. I thought the addendum was necessary because, you know, you put out smut on our name without adding actual context, man. I think that needs to be addressed. And I think that there's a lot of guys in here who low-key really don't like who we are and what we stand for, man. They, you know, we did this content. I think we did this same stream like this about a couple of weeks ago about managed fair customer service. Oh, let me bring this person in too. So that's what's going on, man. You know, hit the like button, man. I see that we have very few likes, but hit the like button in comparison to how many people are actually watching. What's going on, Complex?
Mike V, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man?
I'm chilling, bro. What's going on with you?
Nothing much, man. You know, I'm listening and I'm getting your treatise on this right now. Go ahead and let you expound, and then I'll follow up. But so far, very interesting observations that you're having, fam. And you know, I'll chime in on it, man. Go ahead.
No, I think MOT and myself had kind of chimed in more than enough. But you know, your name was brought up as being someone who, you know, only had one semester at college. Actually, before you chime in, let me say this about ITT Tech. because there's a lot of people
Yeah,
who
go ahead,
have,
man.
there's a lot of people who say things about ITT Tech and some of these other for-profit schools like University of Phoenix without actually understanding the nuances in for-profit institutions. All colleges are for profit, man.
All of them.
All of them are for profit. So what are we talking about here? The only reason I left,
Wait, what college are they saying that I went to? Wait, what college?
no,
are
they're
they
saying
did a
that I went to a for-profit college. But what I'm saying
That's
here
right.
is all colleges are for profit, man. There's not one college out here that is free outside of the recent community colleges, mute MOT. Outside of the community colleges here that have been made free as of June 2023, they'll be officially free.
Okay.
Whether you go to UC Berkeley, Johns Hopkins, MIT, Harvard, all of these schools cost money, okay? You're not getting in there without it. No such thing, unless you got a scholarship. And the scholarships are really hard to come by nowadays too, okay? Especially for Black men, according
Mike,
to
isn't it more,
three-letter guys.
Isn't it more about the application of the knowledge that you get from whatever institution that you went to?
Yeah, because see,
isn't
information
Go ahead,
security,
dude.
information
Go ahead.
security, right? There is a standard. I forget the standard now. I think it's like, I forget the numerical structure that they use. It's been quite some time. It's been 20 years, but there's a numerical structure that the colleges of America, or whatever the standard Department of Education uses for information security and computer engineering. Every school uses the same curriculum. Whether you go to UC Berkeley or you go to a D4 school or a D1 school, they all use the same curriculum. Okay, the books might slightly differ, but the structure is the same. Okay, you can't go past intro to computer science and then go to something else. It just doesn't work that way. Everyone has to go through intro to computer science or whatever it is based on the curriculum is set out. The idea that somehow that other brand university is better, that's the reason why HBCUs have so much growth. Okay.
Exactly.
That's the reason why HBCUs have so much growth, because one, it focuses on Black people first, at least that's what it's supposed to be doing. And two, you're getting a better college experience. Now, we don't have HBCUs in New England. Okay, we have one PBI, and that's RCC, which is a community college. Okay, and that happened during the Obama administration. Okay, any college that has 35 to 40% of enrollment of Black people is considered to be a PBI, a predominantly Black institution. Okay, it falls under the HBCU umbrella or the MSI umbrella, minority.
But it's not a
serving,
traditional HBCU, though.
Yeah, traditional HBCUs stopped in 1965. Right. Okay, those are the last HBCUs. But PBIs became recent during the Obama administration. We don't have a whole lot of flexibility when you have Black people coming out of disparate poverty and other positions. Okay, you can't just say, oh, well, this person went to this school. That doesn't mean anything, because we know a lot of people who went to a lot of good schools, and they say a lot of fuck shit too. You think Jordan Peterson is a credible person too? I don't think so. Look at the PhDs that we have in this space. How credible are they, right? And so what I'm saying here is you can't just put all the credibility on the institution because a person went there. I know quite a few people who went to Harvard and they have degrees in what do you call it? Music literacy or something like that. Okay. That doesn't make them the subject matter expert. Not in this space, they wouldn't be. Okay. Mm-hmm. Most of the people that I work with in IT don't have a background in IT. They have something, one of the people I work with had a background in museums, museum arts or something like that, museum of fine arts or something like that. Their background was not tech. My Windows architect, okay, he's a Windows architect at the time. I'm dating myself, maybe 20 years or so. He had a background from Berklee College of Music. He was not a tech guy.
I was going to say, we talked about him.
Yeah.
He back. The
Yeah.
people that have people who had like degrees from Berkeley, because that dude Bernard, I'm trying to remember his name, the guy who does BPS space, the rockets, the
Yeah.
mini rockets.
Yeah.
He's the same thing, dude. He actually has a music degree from Berkeley.
Yeah.
But somehow found he's a goddamn rocketeer.
Yeah.
With a music degree from Berkeley, right? And you mentioned that guy also, the one you were just mentioning right now, the dude who has
he's a Windows
background
architect.
from Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And he has a music degree background from Berkeley. So I remember it was a live stream some time back where we talked about that convergence. Right.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people do, they have a prominence in some sector of tech, but they didn't necessarily come from that, right? Like in terms of like a traditional educational background. Like I didn't even come from that.
Yeah.
I came from music, bro. Like to keep it a buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in law enforcement before I went into tech.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Many of our IT people came from some form of law enforcement, whether it's corporate security or private security. They came from that background and got into tech after the fact, not before the fact. And so I don't know where this is coming from, where you have to throw somebody's credentials in our face as if we're supposed to step to the side and let that person run our channel, or to allow this person to kind of, have some kind of privilege over us. No, that's just not, your privilege or your credibility is not going to come from where you went to school, but what you actually do. I don't care if you cam up. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care about your GPA. I don't care about your zodiac sign and what color belt buckle you have on, and I don't care about all that. That's not relevant. You're never going to hear me say, "Oh, complex, man, you only have one semester of college, man. How can you possibly talk about micromobility and IoT? I mean, how can you ever talk about that?"
Because I worked for one of the biggest startups. That's how.
Yeah.
What, bro? Like, wait, Mike. Let's keep it real, dude. Like, how many guys in college, no matter what's, dude? Because dude, in full disclosure, at best, I may have completed a freshman year, like 1 year of college, and that was from going dude. And I'll say it. I went to Cal State Northridge, and I went to Pierce College.
Yeah.
I went to two colleges, and between the two, I may have completed 1 year. But I'm gonna tell you something. How many instances have we seen people that were in college, but also on the side of their studies was involved in some sort of technology, some sort of tech-based product that they were developing, right? That they saw an entry point into the industry. So they did things concurrently. And as soon as their shit hit, what did they do? They bounced from school.
Yep. Zuckerberg didn't, those guys.
You want to run down the list? Go ahead.
There's quite a few of them. It's quite a few of them. What college does, especially D1 through D4s, man, is the social networking. That's the big piece. And the other big piece is access to robust infrastructure. Okay. HBCUs kind of lack that, right? That's kind of, some of the gripes that people have about HBCUs is that, roach infested or, leaky pipes and stuff like that. That's always been a critique of HBCUs. But what people don't realize is that 2/3 of Black men who are in STEM come out of HBCUs. 2/3 of your lawyers. Yeah, 2/3. Let me just finish this real quick. But 2/3 of your lawyers come out of HBCUs. So if the critique is about, oh man, we don't have the credentials. Well, your guy doesn't have the credentials either. He's not from an HBCU. Based on the screenshot, he's not from an HBCU. But that's not our gripe, right? My gripe isn't where he went to school or what he does for a living. I don't care about that. We don't care about that. We don't even talk about this guy. You're bringing him up to us as if we're supposed to be, minimized by his success. I think he's a fantastic cybersecurity person. All of the BS aside, I think he's really good at what he does, but he's not manosphere, he's not a contributor, and he's not a stakeholder.
There you go.
That's,
Simply put.
Yeah, it's
We
just that
we
simple.
never questioned his skills, Mike.
Yeah.
Never questioned that.
Yeah, I see what he does on social media outside of the space. I think what he does is, really I shouldn't say phenomenal, but I think it speaks to his desires to be in that industry. But what I will say is that doesn't mean anything to us. That doesn't mean that, oh man, we gotta change our content because he's out there doing it and getting it. I don't care about that. We don't care about that.
Literally, bro, nothing's gonna change. No.
Yeah. Go ahead, Raul.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, man, these dudes are too old for this shit, man. Like, to be honest with you, like, it's something that I said to Complex recently when we were talking. And it's something that a lot of Black men will participate in against other Black men. And it's this idea of you're being judged based on what you haven't done instead of what you have done, And when it comes to things like business and stuff like that, like first of all, like, dude, who are you that we have to prove something to in the first place? Like, who are you? I mean, he's already let it be known that his purpose in the space from his own mouth is that he's here to troll, okay? Because in his own mind, he says that the space ain't really serious. Well, how can you say that when you yourself have been over to the Brain Trust before, and the content, you have never seen any beef-centered content on the Brain Trust. So when you make the argument that the space is not serious, number one, you're lying, because there are places in the space who aren't serious. But where do you find yourself most of the time? You find yourself in the spaces where the BS goes on all the time. So you need to blame yourself for where you congregate, because I mean, last time I checked, the Brain Trust opened up the door for him to come and kick it and talk. This should actually be the very space that he should want to be around, all jokes aside. So the fact that you yourself, who's supposed to be all about tech, but you don't want to be in the space where tech and business is talked about, that really says a lot, and that's why I questioned him. I said, well, because he was trying to make it seem like, the Brain Trust, is a failure. And I said, well, how can it be a failure if you're talking about it? I said, you're constantly talking about it. So why would you constantly be talking about a space that's a failed space? I said, it's still, the Brain Trust still operates. So that means it's still in existence. So that's not the sign of failure, something that it actually is here existing and being on the mission of what it was set up to be about. And so, he couldn't say anything like that. And I said, before you tried to start your Hall of Shame channel, tech-centered channel, I said before the Brain Trust came into existence, I said, where was your channel at talking about tech? See, you've been here about the trolling from the beginning. Your focus wasn't about tech, even though you're a tech guy and you say that the space is not serious. Okay, so why didn't you take the lead as a leader in tech? Why didn't you take the lead as a man and go out there and try to bring about a difference in the space, like the founding members of the Brain Trust did, who decided to separate from the BS in the first place, because the founding members wanted Black men to be viewed as something else besides being entertaining buffoons. But you didn't do that. You didn't take that initiative. That's what leaders do. You didn't take the initiative of a leader. What you did was you saw the Brain Trust form, and then you tried to bite the blueprint, and then it didn't work. And then when O'Shea shitted on you, now you've been griping with the space ever since. So you tried to bite, and that's what usually happens. The biters, you get embarrassed. So now you got clown. Your beef shouldn't be with the brain trust because the brain trust never did anything to you. Your beef should be with somebody like O'Shea who actually clowned you. So if you ain't got no smoke for him like that, why is your smoke directed at a space that actually welcomed you at one point when it believed that you were on some serious stuff? Why you got beef with a space that actually welcomed you? And you didn't actually be a leader when you came to the space with these credentials. Because for whatever people could say that, you know, people might not agree with Theo Waffle, whatever the case may be, he created something where cats can learn something. So you didn't do that. You didn't do that. You didn't become a leader. And if you come into the space with those type of credentials, you should be the main person leading with those type of credentials instead of leading with your trolling bullshit.
Go ahead, MOT.
Yeah, it's just at the end of the day, why is it so hard for people to be like, okay, this is what the manosphere is about, and you're just not manosphere? Like, why do we have to say you're not manosphere? Like, how come people just can't come to the conclusion that they're not manosphere based on the fact that they have nothing to offer?
Mm-hmm.
It's always us who have to leave. It's always us who have to do all this stuff. It's never the people who do all this stuff. It's always us who have to move mountains and all this kind of stuff. Like, why is it that they just can't come to this conclusion on their own? Adding value is very easy. If you're a value person, like, it's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think Rael actually brings up a really good point, and he's talked about this before, that a lot of folks don't respect the business class. And I think this is testament that there is an axe to grind and an angst against what would be considered to be the business class. Now, we're not saying that we're doing business on the brain trust because we don't accept super chats and cash apps and all the other monetization. But what I'm saying here is, I think Rael has really touched on this many a times, and it really proves his point that there are people who work collectively against the best interest of progress, whether it's business, academics. There's a lot of folks, man, who don't want to see progress within the Black community. They don't want to see that. They don't want you being at the forefront of leading that progress. Now, I understand that there's some people in this space, man, who are like, they're corporate citizens, man. They live inside corporate America. They're all about LinkedIn. They're all about, what do you call it? The certificates and stuff that you get, the little buttons and stuff. Oh, this person has advanced to this, and shout out to this person. I don't really care about all that. One of the things about LinkedIn that I don't like is that now that I learned now that I didn't know before, is that before George Floyd, I remember in corporate America before the pandemic, if you came in with a BLM t-shirt or any affirmations about the humanity of Black people, man, there was a lot of people frowning against those sort of affirmations in the workplace. Okay, they can have rainbow flags, they can have trans flags and all that other stuff, but when it came to Black people's humanity, a lot of folks who were completely against that. It wasn't until George Floyd that you started hearing more about DEI, and that became a more prominent term to be thrown around and used and leveraged within the workplace. And so I know a lot of folks on there who are against it, and now today, they're up there throwing up the Black emoji fist. Nah, man, I'm not down with those people, man. I just use LinkedIn to talk to certain people, and that's it. You're not going to see me on LinkedIn posting stuff. You're not going to see me on LinkedIn, throwing up pictures and doing the, doing the two-step with people. I don't do that because I know who's on there. I know what they're about. I know what LinkedIn is about, man. It is a predominantly white space meant to affirm whiteness in corporate America. That's all it's about, okay? That's all it's about, using somebody's credentials against us and saying, well, this person has this degree and they have that degree. That's cool and all, but make it manifest on the ground for other people, because we're not asking, this person to prove us wrong. We're saying, if what you're saying is so credible, then why aren't you doing it? Why are you expecting us to do, I'm looking at the thumbnail again, the Black Brain Trust has been a great disappointment. To who? To who? To who? In which way?
Incredible.
Right. Well, again, see, when you start talking about myths about people, now you're starting to talk about things that exist on a group collective consciousness level. And so, see, somebody like me, for example, who really loves business. I mean, it really is my passion. It unlocked a creative side about myself that I didn't even know I had before I got into it. So, but I noticed throughout the years, there was a consistent pushback against business, especially from a Black man's perspective, when you was trying to push and advance, business and what it can do for our group collectively. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that business is very philosophical. And if you read any of the works of Booker T. Washington and his thoughts on business, you will see how philosophical business really is. And so when we're looking at a lot of people in business that we associate with being successful in business, a lot of times what we assume is that, well, this is just white people and white people just know business and they just know how to do it. And what we don't realize is that a lot of these axioms that we might echo from people that might be white, what we're finding out, what we have found out as far as the research is that a lot of this stuff, man, has Booker T. Washington's imprint on it. Okay. And it makes sense, because if Teddy Roosevelt took the blueprint from Booker T. Washington with the National Negro Business League, which was a business consortium of Black men, ironically, that was set up 35 years after chattel slavery ended, you have to really ask yourself, man, what was the mindset of men like him and others who gathered for this to form something of this particular magnitude 35 years after chattel slavery? Like, this is
After
not some
slavery, man.
Like,
Come on.
This is not some just flippant organization that was started. This had teeth. It had a real purpose and mission. And it was set up, man, because this is what one of the things that I found out the most, that's been the most striking about Tuskegee. On the front end, it looked like it was just set up to be a school for trade, for Black men to learn trades, and on the surface, yeah, it looked like that. That was the sale on the surface. But really, truly beneath that sale was really, Tuskegee really was a business school. It was a business school. Because what Booker T. Washington was trying to transform the common Black man. He was trying to transform the common Black man into an entrepreneur, because he believed in Black men as a collective. So that was a time in our history where we had every reason to not believe in each other. We had every reason to think the worst of each other, to think that we couldn't do it, to think that we couldn't come together. And his mind frame, and a lot of the Black people that existed at that time, it was different. They understood that the journey was going to be slow, it was going to be hard, but they believed in each other. And that's why you had a consortium, a business consortium form like this. You don't form something like this if you don't believe in each other. And so now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryle, go ahead. Finish up. Go ahead and finish, man.
So when you have something like this, it completely refutes the notion that Black people are just inherently negative. We're defective. We can't work together. And so what I'm realizing is that when we do push business, what we're really pushing up against is the broken consciousness that has been sold to us by many Black people that we have come to respect. This notion that it's more of a system that keeps us from doing great things. because that's not really true. Because if they could build some things like that of that magnitude, and like I always say, there is no Tuskegee Airmen without Tuskegee Institute. Okay, so you got to keep it in perspective. And so I was looking at something that NASA was doing with Tuskegee. They've been doing a lot of things, different initiatives with Tuskegee. So you have to realize, like, well, wait a minute. We have a lot of people who come around with this notion, like the dude was earlier, instead of trying to enhance something that's already been built. Like Cass wasn't coming to the National Negro Business League and telling Booker T, like, man, you're doing this wrong, man. This ain't right, man. Like, nah, man, you need to do it this way. Like, no, Cass was coming there with the intent and saying, yo, how can I add value to it? How can I add value to it? And then they was forming different things outside of it, like bankers associations and insurance associations, which grew the prestige. You got to remember the National Negro Business League operated in about 34 states. So you're talking about in such a short period of time, Booker T. Washington having that level of reach in different states in the United States. 34, I think we got 52. 34 out of 52 states, that's a hell of a reach without Instagram, Facebook, and all that different type of technology.
I was just about to go there. Like,
yeah,
we're talking pre-social media. Okay.
Well, I would say that your social media was your print published platforms, you know, your newspapers and stuff. That was your social
we're
media.
talking about like your modern day.
Yeah. In terms of electronic, you had media, of course. The black press was, a lot of people don't really understand how powerful the black press was, but unfortunately, a lot of the black press was used to harm the black business interests of black capitalists and industrialists, and that's well documented with William Monroe Trotter, who was a staunch opponent of Booker T. Washington. Many of the black press had a Garvey must go campaign that ultimately led to them actually getting charges brought against Garvey by the attorney general. But it goes to show that, like, this business, there is a, for some reason, when business is talked from black men's perspective specifically, because I never see these cats antagonizing black females out here who are engaging in business and talking about business. They don't do that to them. It's only when it's coming from the black male's perspective, we get a lot of this antagonism, and this has a long history. This is not something new. This has been happening for over 100 years now. And we finally found out why it's been happening. And that's why we decided to cover Booker T in the first place.
Yeah, let me let Nagone go.
So you guys having this conversation, I think a lot was covered here. As far as the Black Brain Trust, we are Manosphere. This is about, pushing ideas forward for Black men. Can we do this thing for you? No, you have to do it for yourself, but we put a lot out here to push forward for brothers. I've been involved with the Brain Trust for the last 3 years or so, and 3-4 years or somewhere.
What?
How many years has it been?
Okay. Shit, like 6.
It's been okay.
We gotta go before. We gotta go before the formation.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been in the black man.
Bro, come on, dog.
Since the beginning, since the very beginning. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. Complex company.
Like, what? What you talking about?
That's funny. But we definitely are pushing things forward. Some of these other guys coming in, Johnny come lately, is talking crazy. It's ridiculous. And I have to say, I think these brothers here right now are kind of covering this really, really, really well. And Mike, thanks for bringing me on. But I think you and MOT Complex and you guys, I think you guys really came here and covered this very nicely. I have to say. So I think your response to this was excellent.
But wait a minute, Nicole, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Right. Like, I gotta ask you, bro.
Go ahead.
Because it's like, I guess another live stream, I got hip to was, the live stream from last night, the BGS live stream. And literally there was essentially sort of like an attempt to really negate 1.0, right? Well, and the question was asked, well, what receipts does 1.0 have? And I'm like, okay, well, 1.0 created 3.0.
Well, no. The receipts are 1.0 created 2.0, set up everything for 2.0.
But 1.0 also is a part of 3.0, right? So I'm saying the receipts are across the board. What say you about, because you was here before me, right? And so I just want your opinion on this, dude. Like you done hit me through some shit, Mike V, Soul and Black Wacky. I look at y'all as the cats that really kind of like brought me up to speed at the time I came in, right? But like this notion of this idea that 1.0 don't have no receipt or nothing, that's like, okay, that's like saying Mike V don't exist, Nagone don't exist, Wacky O don't exist, Soul and Black don't exist. Mike, I think you was telling me Pink Elephant, his content is still up, right?
Yeah, Pink Elephant. Yeah, his content is still up. There's Thugtician files. There's an archive for Thugtician. There's quite a few archives of different content creators who existed back then. And so to make it seem as if nothing came before you because there's no receipts, there's CVS long receipts.
These guys, I mean, they're crazy. They're talking out the sides of their ass. Whoever that is talking out the side of his ass, and whoever that is, I will challenge him directly.
That was BGS. That was BGS.
Yeah. Well, okay. BGS saying that he's talking out of the sides of his ass, because at the end of the day, these guys were here laying it down, and I have to say, a lot of what they laid down was actually even better than than some of these brothers came in and laid it down kind of after them. What really gave these brothers in 2.0 a bit more advantage was what YouTube laid out. And that was YouTube laid out Google Hangouts.
And monetization.
Right? Monetization, where you had the super chats, and then you then you were able to do your not only super chats, but some you hit the donate button right there and all that. These platforms were set up by YouTube that put that out there and gave them a greater platform to do that. That helped to expand it. They didn't even help to do that.
Oh, and Nagone dropped out.
And that is how these channels and people got around a lot more, and the channels grew bigger. So, that's really what happened. These other brothers from 1.0 kind of moved on, did some of the other things. And then these guys started coming around late 2014, 2015. And I started seeing these guys literally when we were doing Blog Talk Radio with Obsidian. Okay. And then these guys started coming through then. And
thank you.
That's kind of how that whole thing laid out. So these guys coming in saying, well, we just thought out, they're talking out the sides of their ass. I was there. Day one, I was there. I saw what do you call Black Ram? He came out first with Black Ram for Vengeance, and I believe that was 2014, maybe the end of 2014. That's when I started seeing these guys. That's when I started seeing these brothers.
Yeah.
So I would put Black Ram in 1.0. Right, the rest of the other guys in 2.0, they came in after first one you the city, and then you saw Angry Man. He had this little thing going on, and then the other guys, and he started making all this thing. They weren't the founders of this. They're not the founders of this. I'd sit right here right now and say, you weren't the founders of nothing. I was there when you guys were around. You didn't found this.
Yeah.
You were 2.0. That's what you were. There was 1.0, then there was 2.0. There's 3.0. And so on and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make sure not kind of veer off the path of talking about this 1.0
But I did.
stuff.
But we just want to get that clear. That's clear. That's it.
No, that was
Mike.
me, dude. I asked Nagone that, bro. But
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
I want to focus back on these for-profit piece about college, man. 75% of Black men who go into STEM drop out. Okay, there was 75% dropout rate. Two-thirds of Black men who roll in STEM usually drop out within their first year. So it doesn't matter which school you go to. Okay, this idea that you got to go to a D1 school in order to be successful, those days are over. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jassy, I think that's who he is, of Amazon. They all came out and said, yeah, we're not going to focus on college degrees anymore. We're going to focus on skills and abilities. So what are we talking about here? Google just put out last week a cybersecurity certification for anybody to get into cybersecurity now. Okay. First, they started off with the IT certificate. Now they have a cybersecurity one. They're going past, the traditional college route and bringing people in through certificates and certifications now and training. So
Boom.
this idea that, you need to have this D1 school, this D2 school, or D4, D3, that doesn't matter anymore, okay? That doesn't matter. Now, it matters in the sense that if you want to create something, if you just want to work for somebody, then it doesn't matter. But in regards to being a part of those big social networks like, or social circles such as, the Zuckerbergs and the Airbnbs, those guys, yeah, you got to go to Silicon Valley, because that's the only way you're going to meet those folks over there. And so I think what we do in the manosphere, or what some people are doing in the manosphere, like the thumbnail shows, they're trying to credential shame people like us so that we can't have a conversation, so that the conversation can be monopolized by them that they're not going to have on their own channels or in their own right. Okay. I don't have to go. We don't have to go to somebody else's channel to have that conversation. That's the whole purpose of the Brain Trust, so that we can have the conversation here. We don't have to go somewhere else. We're going to have it here. And so,
Mike, I'm sorry, finish up, bro. I got a question for you. Go ahead.
No, what I'm saying here is, if the whole intention is to question the credibility of our credentials, I thought the content was, the credentials itself. I thought that, that would be the thing that you would critique, because if we're saying something that's wrong, the link is in the chat. You could always come up and try to challenge us, whether you're talking about, any of the things that we're talking about. Dollar Will put up those charts back in the day. Anybody is up here to, that's up for critique. You can go back to the archive and look through it and say, oh, well, he was wrong about this. I don't know. Maybe we can have that conversation. If you want to talk about space and tech, when we were talking about, Africa
space
being
mining and all that shit.
Yeah, Africa being the centerpiece and being the center focus. Now, we just covered an article a few weeks ago talking about Europe is starting to poach talent out of Africa because, they don't have enough people for themselves. And so we've been saying this since the inception of this channel, that Africa was going to be a huge focus. In fact, that's how Complex and I ran into each other, was based on our
Africa.
Disagreements about Africa.
I was just talking to Rael about this earlier today, dude. Oh my God.
We were just talking about you, Mike.
We were just talking about this shit earlier today, Mike. Respects to you, dog. Respect,
bro. Man, respect, bro.
But Mike, check it out. So my question to you is this: how many live streams have you done where we talked about ways to stack certifications, for example, right? I know you did one maybe about 2 months ago, where it was about sort of like as an IT professional, right? How do you angle to protect yourself in the face of like the changing, what's changing in IT right now, right? Mm-hmm. We see all this IT AI stuff, right? That's really is affecting the job markets on some levels, right? But that's the most recent live stream you did about that. That's the most recent one, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, but see, prior to that, you had been also doing that this whole time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, then how the hell? Help me understand this, bro. How do you get out here and say? How do you say this type of shit when we never took the live streams down, right? They're still up, correct?
As far as I know, and they're in the archive.
They're in the archives. So how do you get out here and say this kind of shit?
I don't know how they come to
Oh
that
my God,
conclusion,
bro.
but I think what they're saying is that we don't show our credentials to them, but that's not because I heard this statement be made before that. Well, you got to show your job offers. First of all, that's an agreement between you and the organization that,
Thank you.
that you're supposed to.
PII and
Thank you.
shit.
You could get sued. You could get sued for that.
It's business.
Come on, man.
It's business
get sued for that.
proprietary. Yeah, there's business proprietary information inside of those agreements. And why would you want to show something like that? And what value does it add to the conversation to say this is what you can be making? No, that's agreement between you and the organization, not for everybody else. You know, that's not the standard wage. You know, it's not. The IT community is not unionized outside of the government. You know, I mean, you're starting to see that now in Silicon Valley with a lot of these, Facebook and whatnot, where people are trying to unionize, but they're a long way from getting to that point. My point here is there's this idea of credential shaming where they're like, well, you haven't demonstrated anything. Well, I mean, the article kind of demonstrates everything that we've been saying. I mean, we're just covering it as an additional to the conversation itself. And
But
so,
Mike, all you do is read articles, though.
yeah,
Well,
it's like Allen Iverson talking about practice. Go ahead.
But hold on, but you got to keep in mind too. What they don't realize is too, now you're starting to delve into a class-based argument now. And you better be very careful, because now if you try to come from that I'm educated class, now Complex, me and you've been talking about this. We've been talking about where this stuff is coming from. I'm educated, you're not. So therefore, I'm better than you. Now you're tapping into an argument that is over 100 years old. Okay. When the reality of the situation is that when you look at the history from a business perspective, some of the most successful business people in the history of Black America didn't even have a high school diploma. Okay? They didn't even have a high school diploma.
My grandfather didn't.
My mother did.
My great grandfather had a sixth grade education. Go ahead.
What was that? Wait, was that MOT?
Yeah, my grandfather never graduated from high school.
No, my grandfather didn't either. He had a sixth grade education. So now, when you start making those type of arguments, now you're talking about our family members now. Now you're talking about family members who sacrificed, who didn't go to school in a lot of instances, so we could go to school, so we could have those opportunities. And so
yeah, like my grandfather wasn't playing any games about school. Like you went to every class, you came home with straight A's.
Exactly.
That's what it was, man. Like
exactly.
It was like we did not put in all this work, so that way you can sit around. Like the sit around time is summertime. You can sit around all you want to once the work is done.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like that's very dangerous territory, because there's a lot of people in these spaces. You have to lack a lot of self-awareness to come in with your credentials in spaces where there are Black men specifically who don't have those credentials, but they're interested in learning more. And instead of you giving them a hand and saying, hey, bro, this is how I did it, you could do it the same way. And you don't extend that hand. And instead you come in on some, I'm more educated than you, I'm better than you. You're going to be left on an island out here by yourself with no support with that kind of mentality.
Yep.
That's not what the brain trust does. The brain trust does not lord over accomplishments over people. It's trying to show men how to get the accomplishments too, because when our old asses die, we need the next generation of y'all to bring up the rear to extend it too. That's what this is all about. This is about extending the legacies of people who went before us, who actually laid a foundation down for us in the first place. If it wasn't for my grandfather teaching himself carpentry and getting those contracts with the U.S. Navy and stuff like that, I don't know where we would have been, because things was kind of tough. You know what I'm saying? Mom, my mom and dad divorced and stuff like that. we were able to live with my great grandparents. You know what I'm saying? While my pops figured things out. So that those people gave you stability. You know what I'm saying? So you can't look down now that you got, and this is the problem that we have in Black America, man. We have a problem in Black America of people who lived off the sacrifices of previous generations, who now go get a college degree and will be looking down at their very family member who made it possible for them to get the degree in the first place. Man, we can't do that type of shit, man. That is disrespectful, dog. That's some disrespectful shit.
Yeah. Let me answer this question from New. New put something in the chat. Mike V, do you remember any content created by the name of Heavenly Truth? One, I think that's his name. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Heavenly Truth. Yep. You can run off a litany of names, man. I'm pretty much familiar with 99% of the people who existed back then. So there's no name that you're going to be able to rattle off that I won't particularly know or be familiar with. But that's where we are right now. I heard somebody else in the chat room say, MOT is always talking about he's a millionaire, but never shows his work earlier. And I'm saying to myself, everybody has to show something to you. Everybody has to show something to you while you show nothing. You bring nothing to the conversation. You add no value. Everybody has to bring something to the table except for you.
I mean, but like years ago, I've done live streams showing the yard, the trucks, the shop. I've already done.
He's already done it, man.
And I've already.
You gotta show these
damn.
dudes, Jack. You showing these jokers something for these dudes? Come on, man. It's an obscenity under the eyes of God to have to sit here and try to show these jokers anything. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
I mean, but they don't respect the actual outcomes anyway. Like
well, I'm saying he already did it. He already did it. That's the thing. See,
MOT, you ain't on camera. I'm like, dude, my first 3 years was on camera.
Was on camera. See, MOT, this is what I'm talking about. Dude. It's like, dog, certain shit is like irrelevant at this point. That's my issue, dude. There's been this willful ignorance of this platform's existence since its inception, but conversely, we also want to act as if this space doesn't have the imprint of the every time I see some random ass channel want to try to like talk AI or some shit like that, I'm like, gee, I wonder where you got that topic from.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's certain things, dude, where we do some things, and then you'll see the people that want to claim that space, right? Because they want to act as if we aren't a part of it. When we say we're actually every bit as much of it as you, if not more, right? But they want to sit up here and tell us, well, you guys go elsewhere. And I'm like, but wait a minute. You actually get a lot of your cues for your content from us. Make that fucking make sense.
Yeah, no, that's where we at. A lot of these cats, man. I mean, the links is pinned at the top of this, the chat room. And so all these cats that got questions about what we're doing and whether or not the brain trust has been a big disappointment. How come these people aren't hitting the link?
They're not going to hit the link. If I remember that last person who was kind of saying that, I remember him coming up on the brain trust, making some exceedingly ridiculous comments, and he ended up getting torn out the frame, talking crazy. And then as he was basically summarily dismissed later on, self-dismissal, if you will, I hadn't really seen him around that much after that. Came up talking real crazy. So some of these guys who really have something against the brain trust, they seem to have come up against the brain trust for whatever reason, got torn out the frame and stepped for various reasons, either just quoting information and sounding absolutely stupid, pure stupidity, or some who avarice because of their positions, that they took and were handled for that as well. But outside of that, that's kind of really what I see. That's why I don't take it too seriously, and I don't take those individuals too seriously as well.
No, I mean, we've covered, content, articles for that matter. I mean, we have to read the articles, or else how else we get the information? Black business, Black tech startups getting 0.56% of a $500 billion venture capitalist economy. I mean, how do you explain that? I mean, these are sort of conversations that are pertinent to Black people and more specifically to Black men. If you're not getting access to the capital, how are you going to go about actually engaging in the industry? Where you graduated from is not actually helping you in this area, because Black people take on a lot more student loan debt than anybody else.
And Mike, you've got 30% of a population getting 90% of the monies, 90% of the vent cap of money out there. Angel financing, 90% 90% of those monies, 90%,
yeah.
30% of a demographic of a population is getting 90% of the dough. I don't see anybody else really covering and talking about this kind of thing.
Which makes it more important for Black men to establish Black economic engines and institutions for ourselves, because that's the reason. That's one of the main reasons why the HBCUs were put into place, especially post Tuskegee, was because those schools after Tuskegee was A&M schools. And so they saw the blueprint of what Tuskegee was able to accomplish. And so they were churning out those types of men. Imagine being in an environment, because we have to imagine, because we damn sure ain't in it now. Imagine being in an environment where Black men are being churned out of A&M schools, focused on trades and business. That's the reason why we had Black Wall Street. That's the reason why we had Rosewood. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't like, oh, cats just stumbled upon building a city. That was very purposeful actions by Black men who had the wherewithal and the mindset to actually build those institutions. Because this is one of the reasons why I said, like, why business is such an important thing. When Black children get ready to go to college and it's time for scholarships, we need to have scholarships like we see with the Ronald McNair scholarship, Doc Phoenix talks about all the time. We need to be able to put our money to those initiatives and endeavors so those Black kids can actually get those internships and things like that they might not be able to pursue because they got to go work at McDonald's to pay bills. See, a lot of people don't understand how those things really separate. I did internships in college, you know what I'm saying? And so I know how important, like one of the internships I did, ironically, before I even got in business, I did an internship at the governor's office in the Office of Small Business Development. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. I was able to make some really serious connects with people there. And so people need to understand like why this stuff matters and why the last people that you need to be trying to fight against is the people who can actually help build those institutions where Black people, and even Amos Wilson talked about this, like you can't keep selling Black people that white folks, but you don't give them an institution that they can come home to so they don't have to deal with those people. You can't do that. And that's the problem out here. We're not institution focused. That's why I keep asking the question over and over again. And every time I ask that question in certain spaces, do you want entertainment or do you want institutions? You can't have both, not at this time. We got enough Black people who are entertaining.
I'm about to say, MOT be asking the same shit.
You know what I'm saying? So
I'll be right back.
Yep.
So that's why you have to really, really hone in on, we're only 13% of the population. So we're dealing with a small percentage in comparison to whites. And I'm not saying that whites are our really biggest people that we really have to focus on in terms of competition, because we got other groups of people that are doing better than whites in some measures. But I'm saying that, you know what I'm saying? So we have to really be the ones who are in the know, who understand what's going on, who got the skill set. Like y'all, we got to be trying to work together, man, instead of trying to fight and nitpick over silly crap because we had an ability at one point in time to be able to put the small differences to the side to get to the institutions. That's the reason why we can't get to the institutions, because we poke and prod over minor differences. You know what I'm saying? And this is just for my own for the edification, my own edification. Like before Mike schooled me on the Africa stuff, like I was thinking about Africa in terms of the personal experiences that I had with Africans in America, which in some instances can be negative. But see, I wasn't thinking about it from the business perspective. I did understand the demographics of Africa. I just didn't understand the environment. But when Mike schooled me on what the environment was over there, because he actually touched down, I would have been a fool to just sit and try to argue with him to be right. I had to fall back. You know what I'm saying? I got ego just like anybody else. But when he showed me that he knew more than me, it would have been stupid for me to just keep going back and forth like, nah, but you can't go over there, man, because Africans don't do this. It would have been stupid for me to do that. And because I have always supported the brain trust, I had enough trust and faith in Mike to give him a chance to show me. So one of the next times when I got on the panel and I asked specifically, what are some of the things that we can bring to bear over there? He explained it, and I said, okay. And ever since then, I haven't had any pushback against, going to Africa, because he has some experience in actually touching down. And this is the type of mindset that some of these people are arguing against. People who actually have touched down in places like Africa, who are saying we can do business on the continent. These are the type of people these clowns is arguing with, and you're like, you can't do that, man. You can't do that. Like we gotta have some kind of belief in each other to the point like we just don't assume the worst in each other. Like that's just silly to me.
Let me show you something, Ryle, because you touched on that point. Let's see. Okay, here it is right here. Let me share my screen real quick. Because you brought this up. I really wasn't going to touch on this, but you got my attention just now. Let me share my screen. Okay, the Global Diversity Export Initiative, okay, the National Black Chamber of Commerce, one of the biggest stakeholders in this for the U.S.-Africa Summit. The GDEI mission to Africa is focused on building commercial bridges between U.S.-owned and led businesses from underserved communities and business communities in South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. Okay? I've been talking about this since the inception of this channel, even when I met Complex. This is something I've been talking about. I didn't get a chance to go over it, but this is one of the things I've been talking about. But try to have that conversation in the space, like what you heard from those other guys last night, talking about SBE, we should be talking about this. See, it's one thing if one Black man goes to the continent, you might not get a fair shot because you're going up against other nation states that are doing business over there. But are you leveraging the institutions that are already existing here? What happens when 100 Black men in suit and ties and briefcases show up with 10,000 each? They can't argue against that. All of what you need to do and advance yourself is already here. All we're doing is pointing you to the resources. And what you have is people like the person in the thumbnail say that we've been a disappointment. How? How's that a disappointment? What you're looking at on the screen is reality.
I think it's a disappointment to who and for what reason. And since you can't question them, it's kind of hard to, bring up anything if people are unwilling to actually put their actual complaints. Like a lot of this stuff is just said in jest, but they say in jest and out loud. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to actually explain your actual complaints, because this is what I mean by apathy versus actual learning disability. Like there are legitimate learning disabilities, but not being able to express yourself, but you can able to digest information to order to be able to talk about others. That's a whole problem within itself. And it's really not our problem because we can express ourselves quite nicely. That's not a problem with us. But when you have other people who have these
Mhm.
complaints, it's always a complaining just to be complaining. There's no complaint to resolution. Okay, what needs to be changed? Nothing. Okay, are you doing anything better? No. Okay, so what's the complaint about really? The point is that we simply exist, and that's what they don't like. We simply exist, and it shows them their internal failures and their insecurities that they have within their own life. And this is something that you actually think can be easily overcome. But what if you don't have the strength enough to ask the actual questions, but you have all these disagreements? It just doesn't make sense for me to have the same complaints over and over again when there is a way out of these complaints, which is by coming to a better level of understanding. I just don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, let me just read this off real quick, and then we'll give our closing thoughts, and then we'll peel up out of here because I don't see anybody who's in opposition to this coming up. I was actually going to cover this for the economics live stream, but I figure I'll cover it here too. Global Diversity Export Initiative business mission to South Africa, Ghana, and optional stop in Nigeria, August 6th to the 15th, 2023. The Global Diversity Export Initiative trade mission to Africa is focused on building commercial bridges between U.S.-owned or led businesses from underserved communities and business communities in South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. The mission will begin in Johannesburg, or Joburg, South Africa, where participants can have prearranged business-to-business meetings with potential partners and customers and be given market briefings from commercial officers and in-country trade experts from South Africa and surrounding countries. The next stop is Ghana in West Africa, where mission participants can have prearranged business-to-business meetings with potential partners and customers. After Ghana, mission participants have the option to proceed to an additional stop in Nigeria for 2 additional days where they can have business-to-business meetings with potential partners and customers. Companies offering products and services in the following sectors exclusively will be considered automotive, consumer goods. Food companies are not included in this category. So you're talking about, fashion and stuff like that. Information and communications technology, ICT, safety and security. The mission will help participating firms and organizations gain market insights, make industry contacts, solidify business strategies, and advance specific projects with the goal of increasing U.S. exports. By participating in an official U.S. industry delegation, rather than traveling on their own, U.S. companies will enhance their ability to secure meetings and gain greater exposure in these markets, okay? You got until May 31st to get your ish together, okay? So when we talk about these live streams, go ahead.
I said, man, look, bro,
Go ahead,
nobody
MC.
is waiting for unproductive men to actually hold the world hostage. Other people are moving. They don't care about these dating and relationship conversations. Like, they're moving to own to other things. Like you have like another strategy session talking about, right now about the actual failures of something that people are not going to be able to complete right now by PhDs, but there's no action on the ground. There's always looping back and forth between things that are just not going to happen by them. They're going to be outsourced to other people, but that's where we're at right
now. Yeah. And so people want to say we're spreading misinformation or we're not living up to the, we're a disappointment. How, man? How's this a disappointment? Everything that's in here, I've been a part of this. Okay. Been a part of this. That's how I know about it. What are we talking about here?
Disappointment to Bravo Alpha.
When I said,
proud to be a disappointment to these people.
Yeah. So when I said, there's a difference between one person going over and 100 Black men going over, this is what I'm talking about. Can't argue with this.
So you have to be.
That includes micromobility. That includes
Exactly.
micromobility, and that's where somebody like Complex Design comes in on one of those business flights, and he's able to set up shop, with a loan from the United States government, upwards to $2, $3, $4, $10 million to put out micro transportation infrastructure and vehicles all across these three countries, South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. How you gonna argue with it? How you gonna argue with that? What is there to argue about?
Mike,
I'd love to know
I
that.
told
What are you arguing about?
Mike, I told
Right.
Complex when we got the word from certain brothers in that part of the world that there was room for us to make money over there. And so I started looking in my grant database, and I told him, man, I have seen grants over there dealing in those type of lanes as far as transportation, which falls up, micromobility would fall up under money that's set aside for things like community and economic development. Okay, the money is there. Like there is money in even foreign places for us to take and put our to put our imprint on things from a business perspective. And this when we open ourselves to especially international markets, we're not just making money. We're establishing a profile for Black people internationally in a positive way. So when we go foreign and do business and we do things in a positive way and we do things respectfully, when they see things on the news being adverse to us, they're gonna respond in ways that we might not expect, because they might say like, no, we deal with Black people from America that do business. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They do business.
So I'm just
So
watching my other close.
Hey, well, let's go.
let's go. So they,
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're going to look favorably upon us. Like we're going for I have never met Mike personally, but I know he's an honorable man. I know damn well when Mike went to Africa, he did not go over there with the intent to make us look bad. I just know that. You know what I'm saying? So like to be able to carry yourself in that international space and to represent us well, that's diplomatic type of energy that you're giving off. So you're literally building up the prestige of our group from an international perspective. So just like people like Booker T did when he did it internationally years ago. That's the reason why Liberia has a school named after Booker T. Washington, because he had that kind of prestige. All we're here to do is just to continue on what we used to already do. We allowed that chain to be broken. We allowed ourselves to be intellectualized out of business and economics and focus solely on social issues. But business is social too. If you're not building for yourself, by default, you're going to be dependent on other people. We didn't come out of slavery with the mindset to be dependent on people. That's not the mindset we had. If we had that mindset, we wouldn't have been doing all. At the turn of the century, we had over 757,000 farms in the United States as Black people. That's not the sign of a group of people who wants to be dependent on anybody. We lost that train of thought because we got tricked out of it. And some of that tricking even came by people who look like us. So, going over to Africa in that type of capacity, moving in that kind of way, I've always said to Mike, like, man, that was some real shit. Like that's very respectable of being able to do that. And we need to have men who can actually give men credit for doing stuff like that, because that's not harming you. That's actually helping you, because we need all the help we can get. We need all the alliances we can make to advance ourselves. And it's going to take alliances with other people. You're not just going to do it by yourself. You're going to have to make alliances with other people as well. And a good place to start to me is the continent, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, real quick though, just to follow, real quick.
Anybody
Mike,
else have any closing thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, can you text me that article? The one that you just had.
It's actually a government. It's a government post. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, you send it to me. Anti-Grav is literally in Kenya right now.
Mhm.
Right. So what I want to do is give him a salute and shout out. That's another Brain Trust member who regularly touches down on the continent. Okay, he's there right now. His
Mhm.
grandfather's fallen ill, so I want to just take my closing thoughts actually to send up prayers if everybody can do that for the broski, one of the founding members here. He's there right now, tending to his ill grandfather. But he's on the ground there too, and when he does go there, he goes there to Business Scout. He goes twice a year, right? So, when you mentioned before, prior, Mike, kind of like what we butted heads on when I came into this space, right? What's transpired since then literally has the continent has always been a point of focus since that time. Same for Rael, right? That's what was funny when you mentioned it earlier. And he and I we were talking about it earlier on the phone because it all does circle back, right? And everything I'm not even going to try to get up here and talk about like, well, what we've been saying is prophecy and this and this and that. It's not, bro. This has been hardcore analysis. It's been the fucking articles. It's been the documents. It's been the discussion that has really crafted and honed what our platform is about. And there's not a single thing that either can be disputed, or if it can be, we have yet to see somebody do it. So I'm gonna leave it there, dude. I'm gonna leave it there. Y'all have a good one.
MOT, you got anything you want to add?
No, sir.
You're going live in an hour, right?
Yes, I'm going live.
Hey, MOT, when are you going live? In an hour?
Yes.
Okay. All right, bro.
All right, cool. All right, thanks for having me on, man. We just need to do better and just keep
Ain't no
leaving
problem,
these
bro.
things behind.
Nagon, you got last comment.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, Mike, you guys did a great job covering this. I'd like to say thanks for having me up. Really appreciate being a part of Brain Trust.
All right, thank you for everyone else.